Good morning. Thanks for coming. Most of what we have to share relates to 2026, but because so much of what's influencing 2026 is the construction, we thought it'd be appropriate to give everybody an update on what's going on, because you can see there's a tremendous amount of activity. But before we get started, while there's been a lot of discussion for a lot of years, and there's been a lot of moving parts during that time, and all designed to deliver on Shad's vision of a stable Jaguars NFL franchise here in Northeast Florida for generations to come. And there was a whole sequence of things that had to happen, and they needed to happen in a certain order. And what I find particularly exciting is that these things are actually coming to life right now. So if you started with, one of the first things we had to do is get all the football staff out of the stadium to enable renovations to occur. And here we are sitting in the Miller Electric Center. We had to get the whole business staff out of the stadium so they could come in, do a lot of demolition, because most of the space that football and business was using is all being repurposed in the stadium in the future. And right across the parking lot, unfortunately that palm is blocking the view, is a new office building. We moved in there Monday. So the business staff is settled in a new office building. The football staff has been here for a while. The stadium construction is underway. And everything that led up to just getting to the point where you could begin construction. The promise of the Four Seasons Hotel, you can see it right across the way. The new marina behind the Four Seasons, that new public marina, will actually open late this summer. So if you got out there, you could see all the work that's actually being done. The Riverwalk in front of the Four Seasons and this new marina, that will open the same time as the marina. So you can expect that sometime this summer. There's a marina building that's connected to the marina that includes a restaurant, Asado Life, opening their second location. First location is down in St. Augustine. That'll open up early this fall. And all the funding is in place to finish the North Bank parks. So all of those things were integral components of Shad's vision to have a community and a location that not only would uplift its residents, but also create a place where an NFL franchise can thrive for generations to come. So it isn't just promises; these are promises that are being fulfilled, which is a great thing. So let me start with a construction update. Now that and a lot of this is in the release that's in front of you. Now that the season has ended, major construction, as you can see, continues both in bowl and outside the stadium. There's 75 deep foundation elements that have already been completed outside the stadium. So if you look at some of that steel right out there, and you see that steel is connected to a big concrete piece of structure, that goes way down, and that provides the structural integrity for what ultimately will hold the roof over the stadium. So 75 of those have been completed. 100% of those outside deep pile foundation elements will be completed by August. So there's a lot of work that needs to get done between now and August. There's actually 6 big cranes. They call them crawler cranes because they actually move around as the work progresses. Those cranes move. So there's 6 of them actually in operation, both outside and inside the stadium. One of the interesting things, this crane right here is our problem child, and that one goes around the stadium this way, and you get to a real pinch point. So when you come back here, I guess in a few months, Ryan, you're going to see that a large portion of the player parking lot here at the Miller Electric Center will be removed on a temporary basis. The players then will park out here. So that, that's moving along. All of the structural steel will be completed by November. There's 100 steel trusses that are being installed as we speak right now. We opened up a big staircase by Gate 1 earlier this year. That was open for most of the season. The second grand staircase is right behind us. That'll open early during the 2026 season, and then there will be similar staircases on all four corners of the stadium, along with escalators that will run in tandem with the stairs. The escalators will come at a later date, before 2028, but they won't be this year. The main concourse expansion is underway, and you can really begin to get a sense for how wide the concourse will be. If you look at the outer edge of that steel, that's the width of the concourse. The concourse is about 4 times the width that it is right now. So if you ever find yourself on the main concourse during a Jaguars game or in the upper deck, there's significant crowding. All that crowding will be relieved because there'll be significant more room for our fans to find their way. But we got a long, long way to go. We've currently completed 15% of the project. We're progressing well. We're on schedule, but have a long, long way to go. Currently, there's an excess of 550 full-time workers working each day on this project, and that will continue to ramp up. And one of the other commitments of this project, we always said that, if the end result was just a shiny new football stadium, then collectively, I think we would have missed a huge opportunity. So, we were really proud of not only the community benefits agreement, but also to make certain commitments to make sure that during the construction period, our project benefited the community to the maximum that it could. So, we call these community construction metrics. We're running ahead on all of them. The local small and emerging businesses, we're running ahead of what our goal was. Local business participation, we're running ahead. In fact, as we sit here today, we've got over 140 local contractors that have already been doing work on this project, which also means a lot of local people are being put to work. There's a big issue in the construction industry, in the building trades as it relates to getting labor in the pipeline. That's why if you listen to Hayes' radio station, you'll hear Miller Electric recruiting for employees to come through their training program. So we had a goal in terms of trying to include as many apprentices as we could on this project. We're running ahead of that, and also had a big Buy American goal, and we're running ahead of that as well. So we feel good. We still got a long, long way to go, and there will be continued progress to be made, but we are exceeding all of the goals that we voluntarily agreed to with the city of Jacksonville. So let me just take a minute. Steve, you can pass that. This is a time-lapse drone video. And Lindsay, I think we're going to post this on our website after this. Okay. So this was actually taken yesterday. I think I'm on. Okay, so this is the southeast corner. Some of the things you can see here. During the playoff game, there was a big sky bridge here that connected this to this. That has been torn out. These ramps are in the process of being taken out. You're going to see seats that'll be taken out in each of the 4 corners. If you look here, you can get a sort of a look about what's happening in the north end zone. A lot of that seating has been removed. That's being removed to put in the additional structure necessary to support the temporary seats that will go in for the Florida-Georgia game. This is that grand staircase near Gate 1 that we opened earlier this year. And again, you can get a sense now for the width of this concourse. During the regular season, well, here you can see where it stopped. It stopped right there, and now it's eventually going to wrap all the way around, all the way from this staircase all the way to the other staircase, and eventually around the entire stadium. If you look inside the bowl, you can see the seats have been removed in the upper deck, and there's been demolition down near the field level. Now, this will be rebuilt in time for this season, but that's allowed to get in there because all the work that's being done is those are some field clubs that are being put in. Let me step over here. Now we're coming into, that was that crane that I was just talking about earlier. So this is sort of that pinch point as you come around here. This is the Miller Electric Center. We're actually all standing right there. I'm standing there. You're all sitting there. And you'll get your first glimpse. Here you can get another look at some of the seats that have been removed. And in this corner right here, you'll actually be able to look from outside the stadium inside the seating bowl. So this gives you a real example of how those seats get cut out. And if you recall the design, the reason for that is to create these breezeways in each of the four corners to not only provide great decks to overlook the river and downtown, but also to provide ventilation through the stadium to keep it even cooler. The sky deck at this end, which is usually a group sales tailgating area, that'll be closed for next year. This is the northeast corner. Again, as you're wrapping around, you can see all the work that's going on. The first part of the construction for the grand staircase that'll be located in that corner. And again, you can see how pieces of the stadium have been removed. And then ultimately, we come back in because not only the main concourse, but the upper deck will offer 360-degree circulation. You can't do that now. So you'll be able to walk around the entire stadium at both the main concourse and the upper level. They're actually a little further along on this side of the stadium in terms of the steel construction. Ultimately, all this comes up. All this steel is scheduled to be done by November. So there will be work going on during the seasons. That's one of the primary reasons. There's actually the steel then will cantilever over the upper deck. That's why we have to close the upper deck. It just wouldn't be safe for people to be up there. And so that concourse will wrap in front of what is currently the club seat entrance. Again, this is on the east side of the stadium. And you can see these ramps are all in the process of being dismantled. So this gets us back to where we are. That's our office building that we moved in Monday, and that's the Four Seasons. And behind that is the marina that I referenced a few seconds ago. So we'll post this on our website. Feel free to access it there. Okay, so let me turn to 2026, which is really some of the meat of what we're talking about today. Remember that when we first laid out this construction plan, we were going to be playing outside of Jacksonville for the 26 and the 27 seasons. We got a lot of feedback. Part of our community huddles, we heard from fans, heard from other stakeholders, heard from elected officials that they really wanted to try to limit that to one season if we could. And we agreed to do that, but we knew that there would be some sacrifices we would have to make in order to make that possible. So to stay on schedule, we have to change what the experience inside the stadium will be like for our fans this year. Lower capacity, closing the upper deck, and then coming into certain parts of the lower deck where some seats are being removed, principally to remove those seats in each of the corners to open up the breezeways to increase the comfort inside the stadium. So the capacity will be 42,507. That includes 1,260 standing room only tickets. And this is a decrease from 68,300. So Of the 637 seats that will be taken offline this year, over 22,000 of them are located in the upper deck. So the 400 level is closed, and there are some seats that are impacted elsewhere. On the 200 level in each of the four corners, there's some rows in the north end zone, some of those being removed to create compliance with new NFL broadcasting rules as it relates to camera locations. The lower level south end zone and lower level club. Some seats are being removed, and then we'll come back and replace most of those seats. And also the north end zone spa deck and the sky patio in the south end. Both of those will be offline this year. And again, all that's laid out in the press release. Season ticket renewal information will be shared with our season ticket members in the coming days. And any season ticket holder whose seats are impacted by this construction will be contacted individually by their account service representative with the Jaguars. And all of those season ticket holders that are in the upper deck will be given the first chance to relocate down to the lower level if they choose to. So they'll be given the first chance. And in addition to that, we will be offering some pricing incentives to those displaced season ticket holders. We are also accepting new season ticket deposits. We have been for a while, but we are not assigning those seats until we get through this process of relocating any existing season ticket holders that are displaced. So we'll deal with our displaced customers first, and then we'll begin filling in, assuming we have inventory available, with new season ticket holders. And we do have room for new season ticket holders, but the interest has been very high. So that's basically the major changes as it relates to the stadium for the 2026 season. Okay. Another component of this, and again, a lot of these things are tied together, that is allowing us, although doing it in a somewhat disruptive way, to play our games at Everbank Field in Jacksonville this year. So international games, that's the next topic, and you may have seen an announcement this morning from the NFL regarding the London games next year. So first, it's important to remind us all that the NFL requires that all 32 teams play certain games at international locations once every 4 seasons. Okay. Now this game is separate from the annual game that we play in London. And our turn to be selected for those was originally scheduled for 2027. So next year, when we're playing outside of Jacksonville, one of the games we won't be playing in that temporary location will be an international game. The other game was scheduled for 2030. Okay. So as we looked at the complexities of the construction schedule, and all of this was, the 2 games was anticipated because that was part of our negotiations with the city of Jacksonville. So we've always known that the Jaguars had the ability to play 2 games outside of Jacksonville during the 2026 season. One of the reasons that was important is because we have to have all of our preliminary work done by the end of the 2026 season, because once the season ends, things go really gangbusters. And so we can't be catching up on work that we got behind. That's why you're seeing so many people working now. But in the event that we got to where the season was starting and we had some projects that had to get completed, and it would have been difficult to do that while the games were being played, it was our hope, and again, it remains our hope, that the 2026 schedule would be what we would call a donut schedule. So you would have games, and then you would have a break in the middle, and during that break, construction could be ramped back up to get inside the stadium. So we know that at a minimum, there will be a 2-week window. Now, the NFL schedule is one of the most important things that the league does. It drives so many things. So it's a subject that the league and all 32 clubs take the greatest amount of interest in. Okay, but what the league does, the league does offer the opportunity for teams to provide their suggestions on what they'd like their schedule to look like, or sometimes you may have some dates that otherwise your stadium would be occupied, which would make having an NFL game not impossible, but difficult. So every year, we would put down the Florida-Georgia weekend, as we would prefer not to be playing a home game on Sunday when Florida-Georgia play on Saturday. So we give all of our requests to the league. Again, there's no guarantee that we will get that. But don't be surprised to learn that we're going to ask for a bye week after our second London home game. If we're granted that, then that 2-week window becomes 3 weeks. In addition to that, we're going to ask that we play a road game either before our first London game or after our bye week. And if that happens, then from a construction perspective, we have the optimal schedule, which gives us almost a month-long donut right in the middle of the season. So again, this isn't guaranteed. The league always tries to cooperate, but there are overriding issues which outweigh many times what one individual club may want. But we know at a minimum we're going to have 2 weeks. We'll cross our fingers that we could have as many as 4. And again, the 2 games in London, trying to create this donut schedule, that's one of the trade-offs to playing in Jacksonville this year. So that was that. And again, like I said, this is not something that should come as a surprise. The other piece that was interested in this second game, keep in mind I mentioned we were scheduled to play an additional game in 2030. We work with the league. The league has agreed to move that game to 2026. So what that means is we're getting a game back that will be in Jacksonville, in the new stadium, at full capacity, and we're giving up a game at reduced capacity in the stadium here, and it also helps us regarding the construction. So that's happening for sure. So we think, obviously, many fans want every single game to be played here in Jacksonville. We understand that. But in this particular case, trading a game in a stadium under construction with reduced capacity and getting a game back in our brand new stadium, we think that makes sense for all involved. So that's something that we're looking forward to. Obviously questions about the last topic. This is not in the press release, but I think we're getting very close to a resolution on where we'll be playing in 2027. We have every expectation that it will be taken up at the upcoming owners meeting, which is scheduled for Phoenix at the end of March, and then we'll be able to move on at that point and begin planning. So with that, that's the end of any prepared remarks. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Yeah.
Is there any consideration, looking beyond the 27 season of trying to get out of that required annual London game?
We don't have to get out of anything. In fact, our London commitment has been something that's been rolling. It's been renewed year after year. And, there's a lot changing on the international front with the league. There's a lot that's going to be changing here locally. And I think you can expect us to take a close look at, what our London strategy is moving forward. Not to suggest that, we're going to stop playing a game in London, but it is something that we will look very, very, very closely at.
Two questions. I wanted to make sure I had my facts straight. The 2 games that will be in London this year, are they both home games, or is it like a couple of years ago where one was officially a home game and one was a road game?
No, these are games that if they weren't going to be played in London, would be home games here in Jacksonville.
So 8 slated home games for designated home games for 26. 2 of those 8 will be in London in 26.
Yeah, actually, we have a total of 10 games, including preseason, and 2 of those 10 will be played in London.
And then secondly, I remember a few years ago that the 27 season, the 28 season was probably one of the most successful financially in terms of local revenue created for the club because of the success of the 27 season on the field. Considering how well the team did in
2017 and 2018, yeah.
Right. So considering how well the team did on the field in 25, how much will the reduced capacity impact local revenue creation this upcoming year?
Well, it is going to impact it. You know, you can't lose a third of your inventory and expect to generate the same ticket revenue. We're going to try, that's for sure. I would expect that we would have a big change in this supply-demand dynamic. I think it'll be a pretty electric experience for our fans. You know, it will be a smaller capacity, but it should be packed each and every game, and hopefully, given that we give priority to Jaguar fans first, you know, we have a strong schedule next year with teams that bring a lot of fans with them. Hopefully, you know, our fans will take up most of those tickets before visiting fans have a chance to purchase them. But the other part of this is, you know, we've known this all along. This was one of the trade-offs that we knew we had to make. One aspect of this that's been incredibly uplifting to us is how supportive our partners and sponsors have been to work with us, you know, through this situation. You know, for example, maybe taking other benefits and keeping their investment the same, but then adding other benefits to offset for the lack of capacity. The one thing to keep in mind with that, I don't want to belabor it, but this is an important point. We made a conscious decision collectively, once we figured out it was possible, to pretty much do something that has very rarely, if ever, been done on this scale. And that's produce a new stadium from an existing stadium. And so there are trade-offs that come with that. One is the trade-off you just mentioned, which is you're going to be doing construction while you're playing games. And there's logistics, there's cost impacts of that, there's headaches that are part of that, and there's economic impacts that are related to that. The other thing that we did when we chose this renovation approach, we were able to do it in a much more sustainable way, and we were able to do it much more efficiently. And we said at the time that doing a renovation versus a new build, collectively, we saved about $1 billion, okay? Now, I would suggest it's even more than that based on what's happened. Just look at the pricing of new build stadiums that are out there. So all those things weigh. So yes, we're going to have to be really conscious of what our local revenue is for the 26 season and the 27 season, but keeping in mind collectively with our partner at the city, both of us have come up with a pretty efficient way to deliver a stadium that convinced an NFL team to sign a 30-year lease. So.
Mark, you guys still control the London game operations and all of those stuff at Wembley?
Yeah, the one thing that's different with these resolution games that the league refers to, when they can take one game every 4 years, the league operates that. Right. So while we will be the designated home team for both the game at Wembley and the game at Tottenham Hotspur, the league will operate the Spurs game as they do for all the other games that were there, but we will operate 100% the Wembley game, and then the economics of those, the structure of the economics are different for our game at Wembley versus Spurs.
Do you have an agreement with the league? I know you had one, I think through last year, maybe it was 24, to do that annually still, or are you guys just kind of?
I think we just signed the extension that allows us to play the game this year.
Okay.
So
nothing beyond this year with that.
no, but that shouldn't signal anything other than the league likes to keep their options open. So, for the most part.
I think before, in one of the older State of the Union addresses, which I don't think we've had in a while, I think London revenue made up like 11% of the team's local revenue. Is that
Yeah, that
still
was at the beginning. It's nowhere near that high anymore because we've made significant progress here in Jacksonville, and the economic motivation will change even more once we move into the new stadium. So those are all the things we need to consider when we go back and look at what our strategy is.
In the past, you guys have
Correct.
been able to protect, games, keep
Yeah.
games here as opposed to, will you worry about that with it being a limited capacity, or do you still have the ability to tell the league, hey, we'd like to protect this opponent in Jacksonville, or?
I don't think we're going to say, okay, let's not protect the most popular game because we're going to sell it out anyway. I don't think that's fair to our fans that are going to be there. I mean, keep in mind, our hope is that most of our seats will be occupied by our season ticket holders. Okay, and those are our real core fans, and we're going to rely on them for a long time. Whether you're a season ticket holder or whether you buy single game tickets, or if you don't go to Jaguar games, you can still be a fan, and we still appreciate your support. But I think that we will be guided by, protecting, and we can protect two games. That we will assess which of those games would be best received by our fans to be played here, and there's also good discussion and probably a better level of communication than we've had since I've been here, in terms of what football thinks from a competitive standpoint. They may like a matchup at home against a certain.
How important is that relationship with the football side of things?
It's incredible. I mean, it's again, I'm not being critical to anyone who preceded James or Liam or Tony, but this is at a whole nother level, and there's a great level of respect for what each side of the organization does, and there's tremendous sensitivity. From a business standpoint, we know the best thing for our to meet our objectives is to win football games. So anything we can do to support the football team, and the football team knows they have a much better chance of winning on Sunday if the place is packed. And just as an aside, we've had some great environments over the 13 seasons I've been here. I don't think anything showed what this market is capable more than our playoff game against Buffalo this year, because you saw the stands, unlike a lot of times when the Bills roll in here, it was still dominated by Jaguar fans, and they were loud, and it was great. And I think that was appreciated by the football side, and it was really appreciated by all of us on the business side that, yes, we're correct. If we put the right product on the field and we give our fans the right product for them to enjoy in the stadium, we're going to get a unparalleled experience.
I want to make sure I heard you correct. In terms of the 2027 home game location, you said we may learn about that in March.
Yeah, the process for that is it needs to be first approved by probably two ownership committees. Ownership committees convene next week in Palm Beach, Monday and Tuesday. So this matter will probably go in front of two committees next week. And then if it comes out of those committees with an affirmative vote, it goes to a vote of all 32 owners. And that process was no different than what we had to go through to get our 30-year lease extension approved. But it looks like we're on that timetable.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing correct, but we may not know until March, though, correct?
Right. It can't be officially 100% guaranteed until the full ownership body of the National Football League votes on it. And that vote can't happen any earlier than the end of March.
My other question into that, what factors, if you can explain, what factors are in play in terms of making that decision, as, we're going to play it at this stadium or we're going to play it at this stadium? What goes into that decision?
Well, a whole variety of things. What do our customers want? That's why we did a lot of surveys of our season ticket holders. What do our sponsors want? What do our employees want? And we also want to make sure that wherever the games are replayed, it is played in an NFL caliber stadium We think it's really important that the games are played in front of a full house. And it needs to be convenient for Jaguar fans to get there, but it also has to be in a market where there's enough football fans to be able to buy what will be tickets that Jaguar fans will not purchase. So, you know, those are principally the things we looked at, and there's no secret. We spent a lot of time looking at Florida Field in Gainesville. We've talked about some of the challenges there. We've spent a lot of time at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. The NFL has certain requirements. The logistics have to work out not only for the home team, but also the visiting team. Locker rooms, space on the sideline so that you can continue to support a high-quality television production. So those are probably most of the things that we considered.
And one last question I had, if you can clarify, you mentioned the steel beams that are out here that are going up. You said that is to support, I guess, the roof or the...
Yeah, eventually what will happen is those steel beams will encircle the stadium. Mega, correct me if I get anything wrong here. They will encircle the stadium, and then all of the load that is created by the new roof will be supported by those steel beams.
And those should be in place by November?
Yeah, the steel beams on the outside would be by November. And then the next thing that's the most important piece, which is really critical, and I don't want to get into too much detail here because if you ask me questions, I'll probably have to make something up. There's what they call a compression ring, which sits on top of those, and it's that compression ring which actually ends up supporting the roof. There's a steel cable net structure that basically lays on the field, lays over the seating bowl, and then once you get the compression ring in place, and the compression ring is expected to be in by next February, and we can't miss that. That is really a critical path date. Once you get the compression ring, then slowly you can raise that cable net structure up to the roof, and then to that structure is what you attach the roof structure.
Is the build on pace to be on budget, or how far over?
That's a hard question to answer. Right now, what I would say is this is different than other projects. Okay, if we were just building on a greenfield site, it would be a lot easier. Like for example, with new stadiums, a lot of times they'll discover things that were like unforeseen conditions. We didn't know that there was environmental problems under the ground. Okay, and then early on in the process, and most of the unforeseen conditions in new stadiums are all subsurface stuff. Okay, so if we were building new, we would be through that, which gives you more certainty. Unfortunately, that's not this process. Because it's a renovation, and there's existing systems in the building that will be reused, some will be removed. As I've said before, there are surprises around every corner. And so discovering these unforeseen conditions lasts a lot longer for us. So, our cost projections literally change in real time. If I gave you a number today, it'd be outdated a half hour from now. I did say this a few weeks ago, and I'll repeat it. We will be over 1.4 billion. What that number will be, we won't really know with great certainty until we get through a lot of the renovation stuff that's going on inside the stadium.
And you mentioned briefly an international game in the 27 season. Do you have an idea on how many? I think you can do up to 4. Is that right?
Well, no, in 2027, our agreement with the city of Jacksonville would allow us to play up to 3. We know we're playing 1 for sure because that's a resolution game that the league is going to take from us. Okay, and then beyond that, we haven't determined yet. I mean, I would think we would continue our annual game in London, but there's a lot of pieces that need to fall in place for that. Beyond that, one of the reasons we had the ability to go to 3 games was done if there were scheduling issues or something like that.
Mark, how much pride do you and Shad take in this project being here? We're seeing the Chiefs possibly moving Arrowhead out of the state. We're seeing the Bears possibly moving a new stadium into Indiana. How much pride do you guys take collectively that you were able to do this here?
Well, that's all credit to Shad, you know. Shad spent a lot of time doing due diligence on the purchase of the St. Louis Rams, so he knows that market well. I was born and raised in St. Louis. I know what it's like to a young sports fan in a community to lose your team, because we did it multiple times in St. Louis, okay? And, you know, owners that move their teams from one city to another, their legacy in that city is never the same. Now, they may have a greater legacy where they moved, but, you know, it affects them. And I think Shad and his family are extremely proud that they could make it work here without having to sacrifice those things that were important to everybody in this community, that we have a stable, financially strong, consistently competitive football team that provides our fans in the community the type of experience that they deserve. So once we were able to work very closely with the city to come up with that, you know, that approach, I said, yeah, it's, you know, I certainly don't want to, near the end of my career, be moving a team or be part of moving a team. It wouldn't be my decision. But yeah, I think Shad and his family, and you can see, you know, I mean, you can visibly see the commitment that family is making to Jacksonville. I mean, just look, you know, if you look at that building, I can see where Shad's new condo is, and I can see where Tony and Sean are moving. Okay, it's a big commitment.
Talking about supply and demand as it impacts ticket prices next year, I mean, you do have a lot of interest in probably purchasing tickets, fewer tickets to go around, season ticket holders get a priority.
Yeah, season ticket holders always get a priority. Season ticket holders always get priority pricing as well. I can tell you if there are tickets that aren't sold by our season ticket holders, to try to deal with the revenue impact we're facing, you know, we will probably be pretty aggressive on the secondary market in managing, you know, to have the price of the ticket reflect the value based on the demand. So if we have unbelievable demand for tickets, I don't think that it should be a surprise to think that that's going to be reflected on pricing on the secondary market. But again, I would go back to, I mentioned earlier, the Bills playoff game. That same dynamic occurred. Season ticket holders were able to purchase their tickets. I think the average increase was 7% for the playoff tickets, for season ticket holders. So if you talk to season ticket holders, and they heard people claim, oh, I'm going online, I can't believe these tickets are so expensive. The season ticket holders were saying, you know what, mine were pretty reasonable. But what was left, there was such market demand for it that pricing moves it. And it's not always the Jaguars doing that, because there's so many tickets that are available in the secondary market that don't come through our approved ticket market. Season ticket holders, ticket brokers sometimes, if we can't identify them, buy tickets, and then they sell them on the secondary market. And their focus is simply to try to maximize the revenue they can get from the resale of that ticket. Yeah.
You mentioned ideally that you wanted like that 4-week after like 2 road games, your bye week, and the London games for construction in 2027, or for the 2026 season, excuse me. How much of a boost, if you get that from the NFL, how much of a boost could you see in construction when it comes to the project, and could we possibly see a half and half in 2027 where half of it could be in Jacksonville and half could be at the other location?
No, it's that window is more of creating a backup in the event we don't get all the work we need to get done by the start of the season. There's certain work that has to be done as soon as the season ends. Hopefully we'll get all of it done by the start of the season. But if we don't get it done, this will give us a window to get in there. It'll also allow us to get ahead on some stuff, but not so much that it would change in any drastic way the availability of the stadium going forward. Because, you know, I mentioned that compression ring and that process of raising that cable net. That process takes about 10 months, I think, Mega. So you couldn't, the stadium could be totally done, and you couldn't play games there because it takes 10 months to raise this cable net structure up to the roof.
You know,
Yeah,
bouncing
that
off.
I'm sorry, what percentage of tickets next season at this point do you expect to be held by season ticket holders?
I'll let you know when we finish the renewal process. I mean, the renewal notices are going out to our season ticket holders the next 48 hours. Chris? Yes? Yeah.
And then, where do you stand on identifying a sponsor for the next new stadium?
Lot of discussions going on. It has to be the right fit for the sponsor. It has to be the right fit for us. It has to be the right fit for Jacksonville. So, no, that's a priority for us. But I mean, keep in mind that's not the only thing we're working on, because we have all the other commercial aspects of the new stadium. We're working with sponsors to try to keep them on board in 2026. And then we're going to be thinking about, okay, how do we fit sponsors into our 2027 plan, once that location is determined. So we got a lot going on, and not surprising, as part of that, we've really added a tremendous amount of staff on the sponsorship and the ticket sales front. Chris Gargani's the back head of ticket sales. And in fact, if you drive by the fairgrounds site, you can see a building that looks like it's under construction. That was an existing building that's being remodeled, and that will open as our sales center for season ticket holders primarily to come in and take a look at seats and choose their seats for 2028. And we expect that to open sometime late this summer. Chris? Yeah, hopefully July 4th.
When do we see the shiny new roof start to take shape?
I think the first of that will go in second quarter 2027. Yeah, so first half of 2027. Now, what'll happen? You'll see the shiny part of it going on the sides first, and then what's on the top will go in last. You don't really see that unless you're in a blimp shot or inside. So, yes, sir.
Have you started looking at changes for parking or entering into the game or even getting out of the game as far as fans are concerned?
For this year or in 2028? For this year? Yes. I mean, it's on one hand, we're not going to have as many cars parking because we're not going to have as many people at each of the games. So that's like a blessing way in disguise. But we're going to continue to try to maximize that. As you can see, if you look out here, I mentioned earlier, we're going to have to make place for our players to park out here because we're going to have to get access to the player parking right now. You can see there's a lot of construction work that's out there. So I don't think the parking experience, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Chris, you can jump in here if I'm wrong. I don't think it'll be much different than it was last year. There may be some more lots that are encumbered, but that'll be offset by fewer cars coming. So I think it'll probably be similar to this year, which was an adjustment for our fans, but we don't think it was intolerable. Okay? All right, well, thank you all very much.